Hey everyone! Today we're diving into a really powerful blueprint for changing community health for the better. And it's not about some new high-tech miracle drug. It's about unlocking the huge potential of something we already have tons of. We're talking about a statewide program for reusing medical equipment. It sounds simple, right? But the impact? It's absolutely profound.
So you might be asking, why is this such a big deal right now? Well, let's just get right into the numbers because they really tell the story. Check this out. By 2030, and that's not far away, more than 20% of Delaware's entire population is going to be over 65. And this isn't some wild guess, It's a totally predictable shift, and it means there's a huge growing need for support.
And, with an older population comes, more risk. Get this, 1 in every 4 older Americans has a fall each year. 1 in 4. The tough part is, a lot of these falls are totally preventable. But prevention often comes down to having the right gear. Things like walkers or grab bars in the bathroom, or even a good hospital bed at home. Simple stuff that makes a world of difference for safety.
But here's the roadblock. A brand new hospital bed, that can set you back over $2,500. For a lot of families, that's not just a big expense. It's completely impossible. It means that essential safety equipment is just out of reach. And that creates this really dangerous gap between what people desperately need and what they can actually afford. So let's just put all those pieces together for a second. You've got a growing population of older folks facing real health risks. But the gear that could help them is way too expensive. What does that leave you with? A huge, critical gap in services. And that gap, it's not just a concept. It means people lose their independence, healthcare costs go up for everyone, and thousands of people are living a lower quality of life.
Okay, but here's where the story takes a turn, and this is the really clever part. The solution isn't just about charity or donations. Nope. It's a really smart social enterprise. Think of it like a self-funding program, almost like a circular economy for medical equipment. And the best part? Everybody benefits. They actually call it a win-win-win model.
So how does this whole win-win-win thing actually work? Well, first up, the clients, the people who need the equipment. They win because they get access to affordable, top-notch gear that keeps them safe and independent. Huge win. Then you've got the payers. We're talking about Medicaid and the insurance companies. They win because they save a ton of money. It's way cheaper to reimburse for refurbished equipment than brand new stuff. And finally, the nonprofit organization itself wins because it builds a system that keeps itself going and actually fulfills its core mission.
All right, so this sounds great, right? But how does an organization actually get the green light to do this kind of work? Because let me tell you, it's not as simple as just collecting donated wheelchairs and handing them out. If you want to be able to bill insurance and be a legit part of the healthcare system, you have to go through this super rigorous certification process. Let's break down what that journey looks like. It's basically a 3-tier climb.
Okay, Tier 1. This is the big one. Getting federal approval from Medicare. This is the most demanding part for sure. You've got to get a national provider ID. You have to get accredited to prove you meet really high standards. And get this, you even have to post a $50,000 bond, basically to show you're legit. It is a super detailed process, and they can even show up for unannounced inspections to check on you. Just getting through this first stage can take months and months. All right, once you've conquered the federal mountain, it's time for Tier 2, the state level. After you get that thumbs up from Medicare, the next move is to enroll with the state's Medicaid program. In this case, it's called the Delaware Medical Assistance Program, or DMAP. Yeah, it's another big application, but the good news is a lot of the hard work is done. You're basically showing them, hey, we already passed the really tough federal test.
And that brings us to the final tier, Tier 3, getting in with the MCOs, or Managed Care Organizations. So, what are those? They're basically the private insurance companies that the state pays to manage healthcare for most people on Medicaid. And here's the catch. You have to get approved by each one of them, individually. So you're contracting with Highmark, then AmeriHealth, then Delaware First Health. And yep, each one has its own stack of forms and its own way of doing things.
So when you lay it all out on a timeline, you really get the full picture. From the moment you start looking for funding to the day you can finally bill insurance, the whole thing is a strategic mission. We're talking about an 18-month marathon here, definitely not a sprint. It takes some serious planning and a whole lot of persistence to get to the finish line.
But you know what? Getting through that 18-month journey is really just the beginning. To actually keep this whole thing running, to maintain that certification you worked so hard for, you need a top-notch professional team. This team is the engine that makes everything go, and that engine has to be built on one single, absolutely critical principle: compliance.
And let's be clear, this is not a job for a handful of volunteers. To operate as a regulated healthcare provider, you need a full lineup of pros. You need a program director to handle the big picture, a compliance officer whose whole job is to know the rules inside and out, specialists for billing, and of course, certified technicians who make sure every single piece of equipment is safe and perfect. And maybe, most important of all, you need clinical experts, people who can make sure that every client gets exactly the right piece of gear for their specific situation.
Okay, so with all this talk about paperwork and complex rules, I'm sure a question is popping into your head. In this day and age, can't we just use something like an AI assistant to handle all this paperwork? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer, right?
Well, the answer is, it's a little tricky. When you're talking about sensitive stuff like enrollment forms that have patient information, using a general AI tool like a chatbot is a huge no. That would be a massive violation of HIPAA. You know, the big healthcare privacy law. It's just not secure. But, and this is a big but, there are specialized HIPAA-compliant AI tools that can be a huge help. The key is that the company providing the tool has to sign a specific legal contract, a business associate agreement that guarantees they'll protect the data. So you have to use the right tool for the job.
Okay, so you've gone through the 18-month certification gauntlet, you've built your all-star team, so what's the payoff? What happens next? Let's talk about the incredible ripple effect a program like this can have, because it's pretty amazing.
The money side of it is actually pretty simple, but it is so powerful. Just look at this. The cost of new equipment is, well, it's high. But when the state can reimburse for a high-quality, perfectly refurbished piece of gear instead, they pay just a tiny fraction of that cost. That one simple change creates enormous savings for the whole healthcare system.
But forget the money for a second. What does this mean in human terms? Well, the projection is that by the third year this thing is running, it could be helping between 500 and 700 people in Delaware every single year. And every single one of those numbers, that's a real person. A person whose life just got safer, more independent, and just plain better.
And the impact on the state's budget, it's just as big. We're talking about a projected net savings for Delaware of over $3.2 million, again, by year 3. That is an incredible return on investment. And you know who benefits from that? Every single taxpayer in the state.
And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures the transformation we're talking about. This program isn't just about being a charity that hands out equipment anymore. By going through this whole process and becoming a certified provider, the organization completely changes its role. It's no longer on the outside looking in. It becomes a crucial, indispensable part of the actual healthcare system.
So all of this leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. What we have here is a clear blueprint. It's a proven model that tackles a huge community need. It saves millions of dollars, and it improves hundreds and hundreds of lives. The path has been laid out, plain and simple. So the only real question left is, who's next? Which community is going to step up and close this gap? Thank you for joining this explainer. You can find more details on the sources used on our website.